When the humans said, "You want war? No mercy, no memory, only erasure," Ambassador Riley Blackwood walked through the crystalline corridors of the Galactic Assembly Station, her footsteps echoing against the translucent walls. The station orbited the neutral world of Kepler 442b, a massive structure built from living coral that could house representatives from over 300 species. Today's emergency session would determine humanity's fate in the galaxy. Riley carried a single data pad in her left hand, its surface displaying trade agreements that had taken Earth's finest diplomats 2 years to negotiate. Her dark blue uniform bore the silver emblem of United Earth, a simple design showing Earth surrounded by 12 stars, representing humanity's 12 colony worlds. The assembly chamber was enormous, its bioluminescent ceiling stretching high above like an underwater cathedral. Thousands of alien delegates filled the tiered seating, their various forms creating a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. The crystalline Vorthak dominated the center sections with their towering diamond-like bodies, while the gaseous nebular collective floated in specialized containment fields along the upper levels. Riley took her assigned seat in Section 12, designated for emerging species. The chair was uncomfortably small, designed for the previous occupants, a now extinct insectoid race. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Assembly 15 years ago, making them one of the newest members in an organization that was millennia old. Primary speaker Xyloth Ka rose from the central podium. The Vorthak leader's crystalline body pulsed with deep purple light, indicating formal authority. When Xyloth Ka spoke, their voice resonated through harmonic frequencies that translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. "Today we address the human question," Xyloth Ka announced, their words reverberating through the chamber. "These mammals have exceeded their allocated expansion limits. They occupy 17 worlds that were designated for established species. They consume resources at unsustainable rates." Riley felt her pulse quicken. This wasn't the trade negotiation she'd been preparing for. This was something much worse. "The humans claim they follow our colonization protocols," Xyloth Ka continued, their crystalline form shifting to angry orange hues. "But they interpret these protocols creatively. They find uninhabited worlds and strip them of valuable minerals. They terraform entire ecosystems to suit their biology. They reproduce faster than any approved species." Murmurs spread through the assembly. Riley looked around and saw delegates from dozens of species nodding in agreement. The aquatic depths dwellers clicked their approval with rapid tentacle movements. The hive mind clusters buzzed with collective satisfaction. Riley stood up. "Primary speaker, if I may address the assembly?" Xyloth Ka's form flashed dismissive red. "You may observe, human. This session is for established species to discuss your fate." "Our fate?" Riley's voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "With respect, primary speaker, humanity has violated no laws. Every world we've colonized was surveyed and confirmed to be uninhabited. Every resource extraction follows assembly regulations exactly. Regulations written by naive minds," came a voice from the upper sections. Riley looked up to see Overlord Thex 9, leader of the Mechanical Dominion. The robotic being's optical sensors glowed red as they continued. "Your species has existed in space for merely 2 centuries. We have maintained galactic order for 50,000 years. We know which worlds hold true value." Riley felt a chill run down her spine. "Overlord Thex 9, are you suggesting that humanity should abandon legally claimed colonies?" "I am suggesting," Thex 9's voice became a mechanical growl, "that your species learns its proper place before we teach it to you." The chamber fell silent. Even the background hum of life support systems seemed to quiet. Riley realized that every delegate was watching this exchange with intense interest. "Primary speaker," Riley said carefully, "I came here today to finalize trade agreements that would benefit all member species. If there are specific concerns about human expansion, we can address them through proper diplomatic channels." Xyloth Ka moved closer to the human section, their crystalline body now blazing with white-hot intensity. The temperature around Riley dropped noticeably as the Vorthak's natural cooling field activated. "Diplomatic channels?" Xyloth Ka's harmonic laugh was like breaking glass. "You think this is a negotiation? This is an intervention. Your species has grown too quickly, spread too far, taken too much. The Assembly has decided that humanity requires limitation. Riley's hands clenched around her datapad. What kind of limitation? Complete withdrawal from all contested systems, Overlord Thex-9 announced. Immediate cessation of new colony construction. Population controls to prevent further expansion. Oversight of all human activities by Assembly peacekeepers. That's not limitation, Riley said quietly. That's occupation. Call it what you wish, Xyloth Ka replied. The decision has been made. You have 30 standard days to begin compliance. Riley looked around the chamber one final time. Not a single species spoke in humanity's defense. The great powers of the galaxy had apparently decided that humans were a problem to be solved rather than partners to be respected. And if we refuse? Riley asked. Xyloth Ka's form pulsed with satisfied energy. Then the Assembly will demonstrate why it has maintained galactic peace for so long. Your species will be contained by force. Your colonies will be redistributed to more deserving races. Your homeworld will be placed under permanent quarantine. Riley nodded slowly. She touched a hidden control on her datapad, activating an encrypted transmission back to Earth. What she said next would be recorded and broadcast to every human colony within hours. Primary speaker, members of the Galactic Assembly. Riley's voice was calm but carried clearly to every corner of the chamber. I came here today hoping for partnership. I brought agreements that would have enriched our mutual prosperity. Instead, you have chosen to threaten humanity with extinction simply because we are successful. She paused and looked directly at Xyloth Ka. You mistake our youth for weakness. You mistake our diplomacy for submission. You believe that because we are new to the galaxy, we are naive about the nature of power. Riley's voice grew colder. You are about to learn something that Earth taught us long ago. When humans are threatened with annihilation, when we are forced to fight for our very existence, we don't simply defend ourselves. We adapt. We learn. We become whatever we need to become to ensure our species survives. The chamber was completely silent now. Riley could see confusion in some delegates' body language. Others showed the first hints of uncertainty. You want war? Riley asked quietly. Then you shall have it. But understand this clearly, when humans fight for survival, we don't fight by your rules. We don't fight by anyone's rules. We fight to win, completely and permanently. Riley turned toward the exit, her footsteps the only sound in the vast chamber. As she reached the doors, she spoke one final time without looking back. No mercy, no memory, only erasure. The door sealed behind her with a soft hiss. In the chamber, Xyloth Ka began to laugh again, but the sound seemed less confident than before. Empty threats from primitives, the primary speaker announced. Let them come. The galaxy will see how easily humans are crushed. But in the upper sections, Overlord Thex-9's optical sensors dimmed slightly. The Mechanical Dominion had detailed files on human military history. Thex-9 had studied their wars, their tactics, their psychology. Unlike the others, Thex-9 understood something important about humans. They were remarkably good at turning disadvantages into advantages. Perhaps, Thex-9 thought, this would not be as simple as the Assembly believed. Dr. Kai Petrov was analyzing atmospheric samples from the Kepler 438b research station when the emergency alert echoed through the facility's speakers. The piercing tone was unlike anything he'd heard in his 3 years at the remote outpost. All personnel report to the main communications center immediately, the station's AI announced. Priority Alpha alert. All personnel report now. Kai dropped his spectral analyzer and ran through the station's corridors. Other researchers, mining engineers, and support staff were converging on the comm center from all directions. Their faces showed confusion mixed with growing dread. The communications center was packed beyond capacity. The main display showed a news anchor broadcasting from Geneva, with the lights of Earth's diplomatic quarter visible behind her. The transport convoy Horizon's Edge has been destroyed, the anchor reported. All 68,000 passengers are confirmed dead. The convoy was carrying families to establish the new Kepler colony when it was attacked without warning by a combined fleet from the Galactic Assembly. Kai felt the air leave his lungs. 68,000 people. The convoy had included 15,000 children, making it the largest civilian migration in human history. The attack occurred in neutral space, the anchor continued, far from any military installations. Assembly forces provided no warning and refused all communication attempts. The display switched to show Ambassador Riley Blackwood standing before the United Earth Defense Council. Her expression was stone-cold serious. "The Galactic Assembly has made their position clear," Riley said. "They view human expansion as a threat to be eliminated by force. Today they murdered 68,000 of our civilians to make their point." Riley paused and looked directly into the camera. "Therefore, the United Earth Defense Council has authorized implementation of the Omega Protocol. As of this moment, all human colonies are shifting to war footing. All civilian infrastructure will be converted for military production. Every human citizen who is able will contribute to our species' survival." Kai's colleague, Dr. Yuki Nakamura, grabbed his arm. "Omega Protocol? What is that?" Kai shook his head. He'd never heard the term before, but judging by Riley's expression, it wasn't something humanity had ever wanted to use. Riley continued speaking. "The Assembly believes we are weak because we are young. They believe we will surrender because we cannot match their numbers. They have forgotten something crucial about humanity. We are the species that conquered an entire planet through cooperation and innovation. We are the descendants of survivors who adapted to every environment Earth could offer." The ambassador's eyes seemed to look through the camera directly at each viewer. "When humans are threatened with extinction, we don't just fight back. We evolve. We become something our enemies cannot predict or counter. The Assembly wanted war with humanity. Now they will discover what that truly means." The transmission ended. Station Commander Torres stepped forward, reading from a tablet that had just received new orders. "People, we have been designated as Forward Operations Base Kepler-7, Torres announced. "All research activities are suspended immediately. Dr. Nakamura, your chemistry lab is being converted for explosives development. Dr. Petrov, your atmospheric analysis equipment will be retooled for biological weapons research." Kai wanted to object. He was a scientist, not a weapons designer. But then, he thought about those 15,000 children who would never see their new home. "Commander," Kai said, "what exactly do you need me to do?" Torres consulted his tablet again. "Intelligence indicates that most assembly species are vulnerable to specific atmospheric compositions. We need to develop deployment methods for environmental weapons that can be delivered via terraforming equipment." Kai nodded slowly. He knew more about atmospheric engineering than almost any human alive. He'd spent years learning how to make hostile environments suitable for human life. Now he would learn how to make environments hostile to alien life. Over the following days, Kai watched his peaceful research station transform into something entirely different. Military ships arrived carrying soldiers in black armor. The botanical gardens were replaced with weapons manufacturing facilities. The observatory became a communications array for coordinating attacks across multiple star systems. Kai worked 18-hour days in his converted laboratory. The military had given him access to classified xenobiology data information about alien respiratory systems, atmospheric requirements, and biological vulnerabilities. What he learned shocked him. Most assembly species were incredibly specialized. The Vorthak could only survive in precisely controlled temperature ranges. The mechanical dominion required specific electromagnetic frequencies to maintain their consciousness transfers. The aquatic depths dwellers needed particular mineral compositions in their breathing fluids. Humans, by comparison, were remarkably adaptable. They could survive in a wider range of conditions than almost any other known species. This adaptability, which the Assembly saw as primitive, was actually humanity's greatest military advantage. Kai began developing atmospheric weapons that could be deployed using standard terraforming equipment. To outside observers, human ships would appear to be conducting normal environmental modifications. In reality, they would be making entire worlds uninhabitable for specific alien species, while remaining perfectly safe for humans. But the most disturbing reports came from Earth itself. The Omega Protocol apparently included something called cognitive enhancement programs. Human volunteers were receiving experimental treatments that increased their intelligence, improved their reaction times, and enhanced their ability to process complex information. Other volunteers were undergoing memory optimization. Their peaceful civilian memories were being suppressed, while combat instincts and strategic thinking were enhanced. They were becoming living weapons, people whose minds had been refined for one purpose: winning the war. Kai found these reports deeply troubling, but he also understood them. Humanity was facing an enemy with thousands of years of military experience and vastly superior numbers. They needed every possible advantage. 3 weeks after the Horizon's Edge massacre, Kai completed his first weapons project. He had developed 17 different atmospheric modification techniques that could make worlds uninhabitable for specific assembly species. Some would cause discomfort and force evacuation. Others would cause permanent biological damage. A few would cause complete system failure in non-human respiratory systems. He submitted his report and waited for orders. The response came directly from Ambassador Riley Blackwood herself. "Dr. Petrov," her message began, "your work is exactly what humanity needs. Continue developing these techniques, test them, perfect them." Riley's face appeared on Kai's screen. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held something Kai had never seen before: a complete absence of mercy. "The Assembly thinks we're primitives who don't understand sophisticated warfare," Riley continued. "They believe we'll fight like other species with simple violence and brute force. They can't imagine that humans would approach war like we approach any other problem: scientifically, systematically, completely." Riley leaned closer to the camera. "We're not just going to defeat the Assembly's military forces. We're going to make it impossible for them to continue existing as they are. We're going to change the fundamental conditions of their survival until surrender becomes their only option." The message ended. Kai sat in his laboratory, surrounded by data about alien biology and environmental weapons. Outside his window, he could see human warships gathering in the darkness of space. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it was very, very angry. Admiral Nova Chen stood on the bridge of the U.S. Retribution, watching the assembly fleet approach through the tactical display. Her ship was smaller than most enemy vessels, but she wasn't worried. The assembly forces still believed they were fighting the same humans who had begged for diplomatic solutions 6 months ago. They were wrong. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "enemy fleet consists of 87 Vorthak crystal destroyers, 200 mechanical Dominion hunter-killers, and over 300 support vessels. They outnumber us 4-1. Nova nodded. "Have they scanned our ships yet?" "Yes, ma'am. Their scans show standard human vessel configurations. They believe we're carrying conventional weapons." Nova smiled coldly. The Assembly was about to receive their first lesson in human warfare. Humans were exceptionally good at making enemies underestimate them. "Begin recording all enemy communications," Nova ordered. "I want complete data on their coordination protocols, tactical responses, and command structures. Every word they transmit is intelligence we can use." The Assembly fleet moved into their traditional attack formation, a massive wall of firepower designed to overwhelm enemies through superior numbers. It was a tactic that had worked for them for millennia, but they had never faced humans before. "Ma'am," the communications officer said, "incoming transmission from the Assembly flagship." "Put it on screen." Primary speaker Xyloth Ka appeared on the main display, their crystalline body glowing with confident blue energy. Nova recognized them from intelligence briefings, one of the Assembly's most experienced military commanders. "Human vessels," Xyloth Ka said, "you are outmatched and outnumbered. Surrender immediately and your crews will be processed according to Galactic law. Continue to resist and you will share the fate of your Horizon's Edge convoy." Nova stepped forward. "Primary speaker Xyloth Ka, I am Admiral Nova Chen of the United Earth Defense Navy. I have a message for you." "Speak quickly, primitive. Our patience grows thin." 6 months ago, you murdered 68,000 of our people, including 15,000 children. Today, you will learn why that was a mistake. Xyloth Ka's harmonic laugh filled the bridge. "You think your tiny fleet can challenge the might of the Assembly? We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed 10,000 enemy fleets." "Yes," Nova said calmly, "and that experience has made you predictable." Nova cut the communication and turned to her crew. "All ships, execute Protocol Omega-7. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions. The Assembly forces had expected them to form a defensive line and fight conventionally. Instead, the human ships moved in patterns that seemed chaotic and random. But Nova knew exactly what each ship was doing. They had practiced this maneuver hundreds of times while the assembly was making their ultimatums. While the enemy tried to understand the humans' movements, the human ships were taking positions around the assembly fleet. "Ma'am," the tactical officer reported, "all ships report ready." "Begin the demonstration," Nova ordered. The first surprise was the human weapons. Instead of the energy beams or kinetic projectiles the assembly expected, the human ships fired something completely different: clouds of what appeared to be metallic dust. Xyloth Ka's voice crackled over the communication channel. "Is this your great human strategy? Throwing glitter at our ships?" Nova didn't respond. She was counting seconds in her head. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The metallic dust was actually millions of microscopic machines, nanobots designed by humanity's enhanced engineers. They spread across the assembly ships and immediately began their work. Within minutes, the effect became clear. The assembly's sophisticated energy shields began fluctuating wildly. Their weapon systems started targeting randomly. Their ship's navigation computers gave conflicting readings. "What is happening to our systems?" Xyloth Ka demanded. "Dr. Kai Petrov sends his regards," Nova said quietly. The nanobots were programmed to interfere with the specific technologies each assembly species relied on. They disrupted the electromagnetic fields that the mechanical dominion used for consciousness transfer. They altered the crystalline resonance frequencies that the Vorthak needed for communication. They contaminated the fluid systems that the aquatic species required for life support. "Ma'am," the science officer reported, "the nanobots are working perfectly. Enemy fleet cohesion is dropping to critical levels. Their ships are losing coordination." Nova watched as the mighty assembly fleet began to fall apart. Ships collided with each other as their pilots became disoriented. Weapons fired at their own allies as the targeting systems malfunctioned. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos. But Nova wasn't finished. The nanobots were just the first lesson. "All ships, execute Protocol Omega-14. The human fleet moved again, this time in perfect coordination. They surrounded groups of disabled assembly ships and began the second phase of their attack. This time, they used conventional weapons, but they used them in ways the assembly had never seen before. Instead of trying to destroy enemy ships completely, they targeted specific systems with surgical precision life support, navigation, communication arrays, escape pods. Each attack was calculated to cause maximum confusion with minimum destruction. The humans had studied assembly ship designs for months. They knew exactly where to hit to disable without killing. Nova wanted the assembly crews to survive. She wanted them to return home and tell everyone what human warfare was really like. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 63 assembly vessels." "Accept their surrenders," Nova ordered. "But keep recording everything. I want complete tactical analysis of their emergency procedures, their crew coordination, their surrender protocols." Even in victory, the humans were learning. Every piece of information about the enemy would be studied and used in the next battle. Xyloth Ka's flagship was still fighting, but it was alone now. The rest of the assembly fleet was either surrendering or drifting helplessly in space. "Primary speaker," Nova said, opening communication again, "you have lost this engagement. Surrender your vessel and your crew will be treated according to galactic law." Xyloth Ka's crystalline body was flashing angry patterns of red and orange. "This is impossible. We are the greatest military force in galactic history. We cannot be defeated by children." "Primary speaker," Nova said patiently, "you made several critical errors today. First, you assumed we would fight the same way we did 6 months ago. Second, you assumed we would use conventional weapons. Third, you assumed we hadn't learned anything from studying your tactics." Nova paused and looked directly at the assembly leader. "But your biggest mistake was thinking that humans fight like other species. We don't simply try to win battles. We treat warfare like a science. We study our enemies until we understand them completely. Then we find ways to turn their strengths into weaknesses." Xyloth Ka was quiet for a moment. When they spoke again, their harmonic voice was different, less confident, more uncertain. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to go back to the assembly," Nova said. "I want you to tell them exactly what happened here today." Tell them that this was just a small demonstration of what humans can do when we stop holding back. Nova gestured toward the damaged assembly fleet. Look around you, primary speaker. We destroyed your entire fleet without killing a single crew member. We did this because we wanted to send a message, not because we had to. Nova's voice became colder. Next time will be different. Next time we will not be so gentle. Tell your leaders that humanity remembers the horizon's edge. Tell them that we are coming for them. And when we arrive, we will not stop until the assembly learns what erasure truly means. Xyloth Ka's flagship limped away from the battlefield, carrying its crew and its terrible news back to assembly space. Nova turned to her crew. All ships, begin salvage operations. I want every piece of assembly technology studied and cataloged. Every weapon, every computer system, every piece of their crystalline matrix technology. Ma'am, her science officer asked, what do we do with the prisoners? Nova thought for a moment. Treat them well. Give them medical care. Let them communicate with their families. Show them that humans can be merciful when we choose to be. And then we let them go home. Let them tell everyone they meet about this battle. Let them spread the word about what happened here. Nova looked out at the stars, thinking about the larger war that was still to come. The assembly thinks they understand warfare because they've been fighting for thousands of years, but they've always fought the same enemies using the same methods. They've never fought a species that learns and adapts the way humans do. Nova smiled, but there was no warmth in it. By the time this war is over, they will understand that experience means nothing when your enemy becomes smarter every day. Professor Leo Wraith sat in his office at the Galactic Cultural Institute, staring at his computer screen in growing panic. He had been working on his research project about assembly art and literature for 8 months. Now, half of his references were corrupted. Files were still there, but the content was wrong. Where there should have been descriptions of beautiful Vorthak crystal symphonies, he found only technical manuals about weapons manufacturing. Where there should have been images of ancient mechanical Dominion architecture, he saw nothing but military schematics. Leo rubbed his eyes and tried again. Maybe it was just a network error. But when he checked his printed notes, they were wrong too. Words had changed, dates were different. Some sentences made no sense at all. He picked up his phone and called his colleague at the Institute's archives. Dr. Park speaking, came the voice on the other end. Jenna, this is Leo. I'm having some strange problems with my assembly research. Are you experiencing any issues with the database? There was a long pause. Leo, what assembly research? My paper on assembly cultural achievements. The one I've been working on for months. You helped me find half the source materials. Another pause. Leo, I think you might be confused. The assembly species have never been known for cultural achievements. They're military federations. Very aggressive, not creative at all. Leo felt something cold settle in his stomach. Jenna, that's not right. We've discussed this many times. The Vorthak Crystal Gardens, the Mechanical Dominion's philosophical networks, the Aquatic Depths Dwellers' poetry translations. I have no idea what you're talking about, Jenna said, her voice showing genuine concern. Are you feeling all right? Leo hung up the phone. Something was very wrong. He spent the next hour searching through every database he could access. The more he looked, the more confused he became. All the information about assembly culture was changing. Their art was disappearing. Their literature was being replaced with military doctrine. Their music was becoming propaganda. Then he found something that made his blood freeze. A news article from 2 days ago with the headline, Human Cognitive Warfare Division reports complete success in cultural reconstruction operations. Leo read the article with growing horror. Humans had developed something called the Memory Revision Protocol. Teams of enhanced hackers and psychologists were systematically attacking every information system in the galaxy. They weren't just destroying information about assembly culture. They were replacing it with fabricated records showing the assembly species as purely military civilizations with no artistic or intellectual achievements. According to the article, the humans were using quantum computing viruses that could alter data at the molecular level. Even printed books and physical artifacts were being affected. The viruses could change ink patterns and modify crystal structures from vast distances. But that wasn't the worst part. The article mentioned something called collective memory adjustment fields. The humans had found a way to alter the memories of entire populations. When beings tried to remember positive aspects of assembly culture, their brains would automatically replace those memories with images of military aggression and violence. Leo realized that his own mind was being affected. He could feel his memories changing as he tried to recall them. The beautiful crystal art he had studied was becoming ugly weapons. The peaceful assembly philosophers were becoming violent generals. He tried to write down what he remembered before it was all gone, but his hands wouldn't obey him. Every time he tried to record positive things about assembly culture, he found himself writing about their military instead. Across the galaxy, the same thing was happening to billions of beings. Ambassador Riley Blackwood stood in the center of the Human Cognitive Warfare Command Center. Around her, hundreds of technicians worked at quantum processors, each one connected to a different galactic information network. Each operator was carefully rewriting pieces of assembly civilization. "Ma'am," her chief technician reported, "we have successfully infiltrated 98% of all galactic information networks. Assembly cultural databases have been completely overwritten. Their art, music, literature, and philosophy no longer exist in any accessible form." Riley nodded. "What about physical artifacts?" "The molecular field generators are working perfectly," another technician announced. "We have altered the structure of assembly artifacts in over 8,000 museums across the galaxy. Their crystal sculptures now appear to be weapons. Their musical instruments have become torture devices. Their architectural monuments look like military fortifications." Riley walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of green dots, each representing a successful memory modification operation. "And the cognitive effects?" "Excellent results," said Dr. Zara Okafor, her chief psychologist. "The neural field projectors are operating on all major population centers. When other species try to remember positive aspects of assembly culture, their brains automatically replace those memories with images of military aggression." Riley studied the reports with satisfaction. This was the true genius of human warfare. Other species fought with ships and weapons. Humans fought with reality itself. "Dr. Okafor," Riley said, "how long before the effects become permanent?" "At current rates, approximately 4 months. After that, even if we stop the projectors, the false memories would remain. The galaxy will remember the assembly only as aggressive military powers with no cultural achievements." Riley smiled. "And their own memories?" "The assembly species themselves are being affected too. Their neural patterns are similar enough to other crystalline and mechanical species that our cognitive fields work on them as well. They are beginning to forget their own cultural heritage." Riley turned to address the entire command center. "Excellent work, everyone. Phase 1 of the memory revision protocol is nearly complete. The galaxy is forgetting that the assembly was ever anything more than a collection of military dictatorships." She paused and looked around the room. "Phase 2 begins next week. We will start creating false historical records showing assembly war crimes against peaceful species. By the time we are finished, every species in the galaxy will remember the assembly as the greatest threat to galactic peace in recorded history." One of the technicians raised her hand. "Ma'am, some of our people are expressing concerns about the ethical implications of this operation." Riley's expression became ice cold. "Remind those people about the horizon's edge. Remind them that the assembly murdered 68,000 innocent civilians without warning. Remind them that primary speaker Xyloth Ka called us parasites and primitives who deserved extinction." Riley walked closer to the technician. "The assembly started this war because they thought we were weak. They thought we would fight like other species with simple violence and destruction. They never imagined that humans could fight a war against memory itself." She gestured toward the displays showing their progress. "We are not just defeating the assembly's military forces. We are erasing their entire civilization from history. Future generations will never know that the assembly was once capable of creating anything beautiful. They will only remember them as the violent powers that humanity was forced to destroy." Riley returned to the main console. "This is what total war means when humans fight it. We don't just kill our enemies' bodies. We kill their cultures, their histories, their very identities. We turn them into nothing more than cautionary tales." Around the galaxy, the memory revision protocol continued its work. In libraries, databases were quietly corrupted. In museums, beautiful artifacts transformed into ugly weapons. In the minds of billions of beings, memories shifted and twisted until truth became fiction. The Assembly had wanted to humiliate humanity in front of the galactic community. Now they were discovering what humiliation truly meant. They were watching their entire civilization disappear not from bombs or lasers, but from the simple human ability to rewrite reality itself. Primary speaker Xyloth Ka sat in their crystal palace, trying to remember a song their parent had taught them as a young crystal. But every time they began to recall the melody, it changed into a military march. Every time they tried to picture the peaceful crystal gardens of their youth, they saw only weapons factories. They were beginning to forget who their people really were, and somewhere in the back of their crystalline consciousness, they were starting to believe that maybe they had always been the monsters that other species now remembered them as. The humans had found the perfect weapon. They weren't just winning the war, they were erasing the very idea that there had ever been anything worth fighting for. Primary speaker Xyloth Ka stood alone in their crystal palace throne room, staring at walls that had once been covered with beautiful artistic displays. Now they were bare, utilitarian, designed only for function rather than beauty. They couldn't remember what the original decorations had looked like. Their reflection in the polished crystal surfaces showed a leader who had aged considerably in just 18 months. The war with humanity had lasted only that long, but it felt like a lifetime. The worst part wasn't the military defeats. It was the gradual realization that their people were losing something far more important than battles. They were losing themselves. A communication crystal chimed softly, and Xyloth Ka touched it with one crystalline appendage. "Primary speaker," came the voice of their military aide, "the human fleet has entered our home system. Admiral Novachen is requesting to speak with you." Xyloth Ka closed their optical sensors. They had known this day would come. The human forces had been moving steadily toward the Assembly's core worlds for months. Every battle had followed the same pattern: the Assembly would attack with superior numbers. The humans would respond with tactics that defied all logic, and then the Assembly would lose. But the military defeats weren't the real problem. The real problem was what happened after each battle. Humans would capture Assembly soldiers, treat them well, then send them home with strange stories. Stories about how the Assembly had always been nothing but aggressive military powers with no culture or artistic achievement. At first, Xyloth Ka had dismissed these stories as human psychological warfare, but then their own people started believing them. Assembly historians began finding records that showed their species had never created anything beautiful. Assembly artists forgot how to make anything except weapons. Assembly musicians could only remember military anthems. "Put Admiral Chen through," Xyloth Ka said quietly. The communication crystal flickered and showed the face of the human admiral. Nova looked exactly the same as she had during their first battle, calm, patient, and completely confident. "Primary speaker Xyloth Ka," Nova said politely, "I am here to accept your surrender." Xyloth Ka's harmonic laugh was bitter. "Admiral, my military forces still outnumber yours. We have orbital defense platforms. We have ground-based weapons that could destroy your entire fleet." "Yes," Nova agreed. "You could probably kill most of my people before we overwhelmed you. But what would be the point?" Nova paused and seemed to look directly into Xyloth Ka's consciousness. "Primary speaker, when was the last time you heard one of your people create music that wasn't a military march? When was the last time you saw a piece of Assembly art that celebrated beauty instead of war? When was the last time you met a young Assembly member who wanted to be a philosopher instead of a soldier?" Xyloth Ka felt something break inside their crystalline core. They tried to remember the last time they had experienced true Assembly culture, but they couldn't. Every memory they could access was about military achievements and conquest. "What have you done to us?" Xyloth Ka whispered. "We fought a war," Nova said simply, "but not the kind of war you expected. You thought we would try to destroy your bodies, your ships, your cities. Instead, we destroyed something much more fundamental. Nova leaned forward slightly. "We destroyed the idea of who you used to be. We erased your culture, your art, your philosophy, your dreams. We turned you into exactly what you accused us of being, nothing but military powers with no higher purpose. Xyloth Ka's crystalline body dimmed to barely visible light. But why? Why not simply defeat us in battle? Why take away our souls? Because, Nova said softly, you didn't just threaten our expansion or our resources. You threatened our children. 15,000 of them died in the Horizon's Edge convoy. When humans lose their children, we don't just seek victory. We seek to ensure it never happens again. Nova stood up on her bridge, her image still clear in the communication crystal. The galaxy needed to see what happens when someone murders human children. They needed to understand that there are consequences beyond death, beyond defeat. There is erasure, complete and total. Xyloth Ka processed this information through their fading consciousness patterns. So this is humanity's mercy? To let us live while forgetting how to live? No, Nova said, surprising them. This is humanity's justice. But now comes humanity's mercy. The communication ended abruptly. Xyloth Ka stood alone in their empty throne room, wondering what the human admiral meant. 3 hours later, they found out. Human ships landed on every assembly world simultaneously. But instead of soldiers, they carried something else. Archaeologists, historians, artists, and cultural preservationists. The humans had kept perfect records of everything they had erased. Dr. Kai Petrov, the atmospheric scientist who had become a weapons designer, stood in the ruins of the greatest Vorthak crystal garden in the galaxy. Beside him, a team of human technicians worked carefully to restore the singing crystals to their original harmonic frequencies. "Is this really how it was?" asked a young Vorthak who had never heard their people's music. Kai nodded, consulting his detailed recordings. "Your ancestors created music that could make stars weep with beauty. This garden once played symphonies that lasted for years, each crystal adding its voice to melodies that told the story of creation itself." The young Vorthak watched in wonder as the crystals began to sing again, not military marches, but something hauntingly beautiful that seemed to awaken memories they didn't know they had. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human scholars were returning stolen memories, restoring erased art, and teaching assembly children about the cultural heritage they had forgotten. Ambassador Riley Blackwood stood before the rebuilt Galactic Assembly, but this time, she wasn't alone. With her stood primary speaker Xyloth Ka, Overlord Thex-9, and representatives from every major assembly species. "The war is over," Riley announced to the gathered delegates. "Humanity has proven its point. We have shown the galaxy what we are capable of when we are threatened with extinction." She paused and looked around the chamber. "But we have also shown something else. We have shown that humans can create as well as destroy. We can preserve as well as erase. We can remember as well as forget." Riley gestured toward the assembly leaders beside her. "Today begins a new era. An era where the galaxy remembers both who the assembly was before the war and who humanity became during it." Xyloth Ka stepped forward, their crystalline body now glowing with the soft, beautiful light that had once been their people's natural state. "The galaxy will remember," Xyloth Ka said, their harmonic voice carrying new tones of humility and wisdom, "that humanity offered us our souls back after taking them away. They will remember that when humans say, 'never again,' they mean it in ways that transcend death itself." The primary speaker turned to face Riley directly. "And we will remember why children should never be used as weapons of war." Riley nodded. "The memory revision protocol has been permanently disabled. All cultural records have been restored. The galaxy will remember the assembly as they truly were creators of beauty who lost their way and found it again." She paused one final time. "But the galaxy will also remember this. Humanity is not a species to be tested. We are not primitive. We are not weak. We are not naive." Riley's voice carried clearly to every corner of the chamber. "We are the species that conquered fear by staring into the abyss and making it blink first. We are the species that turns disadvantages into advantages and enemies into lessons. We are the species that love so deeply that we will become monsters to protect what we cherish. And when the monsters are no longer needed," she continued, "we remember how to be human again." The chamber fell silent except for the soft harmonics of restored Vorthak crystals singing in the walls, a beautiful melody that spoke of endings and beginnings, of justice and mercy, of the thin line between civilization and the wilderness that lives forever in the human heart. In the end, the galaxy learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics or their ruthlessness. It was their ability to choose when to stop,